Of course, that's Jolly, and yeah, a lot of you are acquainted to Jolly from Grand Bay in the Calypso business and became famous for herself. Very beautiful, Dominican music, Mala, Tutsa Dominic Me. So if you love Dominica, let me hear you say yay. And of course, we love our country, Dominica, and we want our country to do well and for people to prosper. That's the reason why we are involved. It's the reason why we are, you know, encouraging people to look after themselves and their family. Let's work together for the good of our country. So, of course, quite a lot this year to deal with, and we are very happy that you are with us. And we are here until about 10 o'clock this evening. Well, the Freedom Party this month, October, will be celebrating our 53rd anniversary of independence. So the party is 53 years old. The party was formed in 1968, and the party has served this country well in opposition and in government. Opposition from 68 to 1980, in government 1980 to 1995. And we have contributed tremendously to this country, our beloved country's development and its people. There was a high sense of independence, and I heard earlier on the program before us, people saying of the days when they saw the load of bananas going to the port, going all the way past Raven Coke, stretching closer to Little's funeral home now, and people were involved, independent. They built their homes, they educated their children, and had some good life. And so Freedom did a lot for this country, and we are 53 years in existence as a party. Like every party, you have your ups, and of course you have your downs. So there are challenges always in politics. So to all Freedomites, those who are present Freedomites, those who are friends of the Freedom Party, and even those who were Freedomites before, and they're in other places, we just want to say happy anniversary to all Freedomites, and by extension, we consider too for the people of Dominica, because as a party existing here in the country, party, yes, you may be a party, and you have your members and their supporters, but generally, every party, the Freedom Party, the Labour Party, UWP, the APP, all parties that exist for the country and its people. And at any given time, will be in government or in opposition. Then let's thank God that the hurricane season passes relatively safe this year. The last one, some were sounding, it was dangerous, and it was looking like it would pass away, but the hands of the Almighty were involved, and we were spared. And we say thank you to God Almighty, but we should not let down our guards, because you remember there were even outside of the hurricane season a couple of years ago, we had this trough system where you had flooding and raging ravines and streams and rivers and so forth in many areas that caused a lot of damage. So thank God the season spare us, but we just want us to be alert.
Right, definitely. Well, absolutely. Every year that passes that we do not have a major hurricane is a blessing. We know these things are unpredictable. There's nothing that says that a major one cannot reoccur at any time. There's no statistics that says if we have one now, we won't have one for 4 years. It could be back to back, it could be at any time. So every year that passes without catastrophic damage or major damage, we should be thankful. And again, we are coming to the end of October here. We're moving into October. As the old rhyme says, October all over for the hurricane season, so that's a good thing. I think once we cross the middle of October, we can start taking a collective breath and sigh of relief that, in fact, we got through another season intact in one piece. No economy not devastated, and people not, destroyed. And so it's definitely a good thing every year when we go through this um, unscathed. So we keep our fingers crossed to enjoy the next few months. But as we know, before we know it, June next year will be upon us, and we have to keep vigilant. And what we have to keep always thinking about is how do we design, how do we construct an economy, a society, a physical community that is resilient to hurricanes. This is just the reality we live with, and we have to innovate ways that we do not every year have to be in peril of our life and treasure. We have to keep innovating and thinking through how is it that we can cleverly design a community that is truly resilient to hurricanes. And we keep working that, looking at that issue as a party and as a community, as just a community member. So we are past this one, but let us not forget the work to be done for the next.
Yes. And while we're here, before we move into the topics, let me just extend our sympathy again to Cole and to Valence on the passing of their mom. She passed on a couple of weeks ago and was buried. In fact, I visited Cole at a place in Roseau there. They're from Scott's Head, and very nice people, very nice people. The mother was a very nice lady. She was in her 80s, so my sympathy to Cole, Valence, and the rest of the family on the passing of their mom, grandmother, and so forth. Yes, I don't know if Jeff. Yes, Jeff, you.
Yeah, I also would like to take the opportunity to do the same thing too to Verona, John Mary. These are people I know very well. Back in the day, when I was in Dominica organizing Fête La Sapir for Soufrier Scotset, Galio area, and she always used to make great contributions to the church, like flowers and so on, and always used to offer all the prices she could probably. And I'm sure a lot of people remember the late deceased um, the lady used to also, Lorena, she used to help a lot also, but I'm sure you remember her with the days of last and people like that. So it's a great loss for the community and for the business community. So Michelle, Valence, Cole, and Lambert, and all the others, I would like to really extend my deepest condolences to them and their family as well.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Well, we are still in not still in, I mean, the COVID look like something that's going to be here for us for a while, and we have to adjust to live with it. The number of the cases positive cases have increased. The well, a couple months ago we had no death. Now I think we're about 22 or 23 about, and we are hoping and praying that it may cease there and we can get a handle on this thing as quickly as possible, and that the whole COVID situation would give us here in Dominica, the region and the world, an ease up. I know some of the countries here, even in the region here, have it's so difficult, so terrible. We here in Dominica, it is frightening, but we can say, thank God that our frontline workers are, very much on the move. They are from day one always ready and willing, put themselves forward at the expense of their own life and that of their family, and to look after us. And this is why, from early of the COVID, we call on the population to cooperate with the authorities, and observe the various protocols that was established for our own safety and to adhere to them. I heard earlier in the day there was discussion about people calling on the police to patrol, to get people to use their mask and get people to, stop having beach parties and large gatherings, house parties, and so forth. I think these are things that people themselves should understand that um, you're trying to avoid large gathering, you're trying to avoid, people in parties, in bars, and, clubbed up together because that's how the thing, got the, what you call the fertilizer to spread. And we should be aware of that and should not put unnecessary pressure on the police to have to patrol to tell you wear a mask or to not to congregate with in a house party with over more than 10 people in a house party. I mean, party always there. And once your life goes forever, but the party is always around. So I prefer not to have no party and I'm alive and well. And when things are better off, I can have as many parties as possible. So I think these are simple areas that people have to be aware of and they have to provide the cooperation. I think I heard on the news that somebody was charged for opening up a bar or something like that beyond the stipulated hours. And people must be, they must be sensible themselves and recognize that this is something that we are fighting together. And you can't leave it to the authorities and the frontline workers to fight. It's all of us that have to play our part to fight the COVID virus. It's a dangerous virus and it's not, discriminating. Whoever it is able to take in its path and to, affect, and it will do that. So we too have to be vigilant and we have to be very much involved in the preventing of the spread of the COVID by doing what we are advised to do in terms of the sanitary protocols that are in place and the need to, physical distancing, all these other things that will help. Now, the vaccine, there are a lot of talk about the vaccine around, and vaccine, we have encouraging persons to avail themselves to taking the vaccine. As the science have shown, it minimizes what we call the rapid effect of the COVID on persons, and therefore you ought to avail yourself. The Freedom Party, when the vaccine came here, arrived here, we were the first that put out a statement, supporting vaccination and calling on the population to avail themselves. So we are, the Freedom Party, are for vaccine, and we want the population to avail themselves to the vaccine. In fact, we believe education is key, and what I've seen, maybe not as fast as would like it, but some people who were a bit reluctant before are now coming around and they are making themselves available. Now, those who have taken the vaccine, I think it is only fair to, if you're in a program, or you call a radio program, rather than having a bash and back and forth, if you could, just give your experience and how you feel in terms of you having taken the 2 shots, how you feel, how secure you feel, so others can be encouraged to take it themselves. I listened to another radio station, and there was the Prime Minister with Darren Teets on that program. And the Prime Minister, he went on the usual attack of the opposition and so forth. I think sometimes we have to know when to rest our case. And as I said, I treat every case on its merits. And he went in bashing about opposition and opposition leader. And as if, well, you find that this is the only prime minister that is so possessed with an opposition leader and so forth. Other countries with opposition, yes, they have their political differences and challenges, but they understand generally it is to provide leadership for the country and so forth. And then he said the testing will not always be free, which, yes, I understand that. But soon after he was finished with Daryl Teets, that is, he went on to say that the PM should increase should when they put a cost to the testing, it should not be $5 or $10. It should be in the region of 300 up. And then the callers start calling their show, and when they call, ask for the little thing, their house have not covered since Hurricane Maria, and they need little help there and there. But they went on to say the testing must be in $3, $4, $500 and so on. So it is not a question where we are in this thing to do wickedness and to have a bad heart with each other. I think we have to put the politics aside and focus on the health of the population and each other. And therefore, in Ghana, where testing, COVID testing has been developed at $1, so every person can have an opportunity to be tested so they know the status. So we have to work together. We have to fight this thing together. We have to cooperate as much as we have to cooperate and to ensure that we assist the frontline workers to make this task that they are involved in for so long, almost 2 years now, a little more easier. So Jeff, who have always been providing some guidance and some explanation and information on this, will take the lead on the discussion tonight on the vaccine.
Well, thank you, Mr. Shaw. And to our listeners, just to give a background of, you guys have heard my voice on the radio about this. And a lot of time, people talk about the work you do, but I was taught by my mom that it's better let people think what they want, but you don't have to tell them everything you do. So I'm very involved with the whole vaccines, very familiar with it. Vaccines, antibiotics, probiotics, all kind of bacteria you can think of, good, bad, viruses, diseases. So just for the record, I do have a business in the US, two of them, where we deal with a lot of research on agriculture and animal side, and another one where we do very cutting edge microbiology work, immunology as well, where we actually bring in from a strain bank called ATC. We bring in even things like Ebolas and HIV/AIDS, name a few, into a lab where we test them. And for the many people who are anti-vaccine, anti-medication, one of the things that we've been working with for years is to find alternative to treat those viruses and diseases with probiotics. So we do with this every day, and every day we go to work. It's a challenge. So just to give you a quick idea of what we do. So why one asking, how do I know about these things? So that's really what I do for a living. Now, when I listen to the discussion, Mr. Boston, on what's going on in Dominica, I think we have to really seriously take a deep breath and look at the whole picture. When you listen to the talk shows, it's sometimes some of the people are professionals. They're almost like, if you like, they talk down to people. They may have the education background, they may have the science work, they may be some medical doctors and scientists, they may know they do the work, no doubt about that, great people. But I think the problem is some people come across kind of like arrogant in a way that they may be frustrated, part of it, and I don't think they mean to talk down to people. I think the problem there is that they may be frustrated in talking about this vaccine thing and people not getting it. But we also have to realize we have a society where when you try to put people down, they're just going to be more resistant towards you. And we have to find a common ground to work this together. If you remember, early in 2019, the Freedom Party program I was on, and then we spoke about all the thing about the virus and, let people understand, hey, you know what, over 80% of people get the virus, most likely going to be fine, they will recover from it, with a good immune system. We give all this information and people, and we get to notice, well, these things are happening, no. The approach to this really, I believe, is to go for the government to put everybody together, get two members from each of the political parties, people from the DIC, the Business Forum, and so on, church group, come together on a round table to have a good discussion and say, how do we approach this? This should not be like a Labour Party thing, a Freedom Party thing, or any political party thing, or Catholic thing. I think the way the approach to the political side to it need to be removed, and people need to come together and respect others' opinion. They also need to have forums on people who support the vaccine and those who do not support the vaccine, because you have to give the people an opportunity who don't support the vaccine why they don't support the vaccine, and they can make the case, and now you can educate the people about it. Well, based on what you see, well, here's the facts, and that person can make that decision. I think this is the way we should approach it. For example, we're talking about COVID-19 and education. We need to educate the public a lot about it. And when people hear things like PCR, what does that mean? Antigen test, what does that mean? Antibody test, what does that mean? And if you remember, Mr. Boston, we were trying to educate people about this. When the border first opened, they started doing this antigen test, which I still asking this question. What was the purpose of doing antigen test to see if somebody have COVID-19? We made it clear. And any scientist listening to me today, right now, they will tell you that the way this thing works, if you get the virus and you do an antibody test, all it's going to tell you is that to confirm that person had the virus at some point. However, the immunity is not going to be really lasting forever. That's why even if you have COVID-19, you should take the vaccine, because even if you get the virus, after a while, you're going to lose this immunity. And this is what people have to understand. So they did that test. I'm bringing this up because when I listen to the total number of COVID cases in Dominica, my question is, are they adding the people that were tested with the antibody test that came to Dominica? Are they adding that to the total of the amount of people they said that affected or were in isolation for COVID-19? If that is the case, I don't think these numbers are correct, because anybody they tested upon arrival, when they used to claim people are asymptomatic and they were doing that antibody test, that was wrong. And I think they need to look at these numbers and probably remove that. That's one thing I think that needs to happen. Now, another thing with the COVID-19, in this day and age, we are trying to go and get our children educated online. First of all, that's why you have to do planning. How do you do this planning? What is the science data you have basing of that to go e-learning? Did you do the homework of how many parents can afford to have internet at their homes? How many parents who have kids who do not have internet at their home, who do not have a computer at the home? In this day and age, I think that, again, this is where you talk about bringing people together. Members of parliament, not just the government side, but members of parliament, the business people, the political parties should come together where you put something in place and say, look, computer right now is not a luxury item. This item, we need it for e-learning. It is more than time that some sort of VAT, or what is the VAT, or the taxes should be removed for duty-free for computer to be coming in, where children can have those laptops and be able to learn at home. Since in the summer, I was in Dominica, in the summer when we had this big testing and everything going on, this is when the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health should be coming together, looking at their system. They're going to be doing school from home because they announced this a long time ago. School going to start in October. They should have looked at like schools that have big yards where they can put internet Wi-Fi there and the kids could sit on the ground, because those young kids, they need that face-to-face. So these are the things I'm talking about. It's not just about the vaccine, but there's more that goes into it, the mental side of it. This is where the education side comes in. Another thing I think that they should have really looked at, you cannot make everybody get a laptop free, duty-free in Dominica. What with the business people? The economy is bad. You're complaining as a government. Well, give these people a tax break on those electronic items that they can pass it on to the consumer, so everybody can afford it, and then you have money in circulation in the country. That's another thing I think we need to look at. Now, as part of data, I do data all the time, and I believe in data. When you come up with, I really don't know who make those rules. I don't know how they come up with these rules. When you tell me you have a box that is approximately 72 square foot, 6 foot by 12 foot, wide, is about 72 square feet, you're allowing 14 persons on a minibus. 14 persons on a 72 square foot. But a church in Dominica, the average small size church, is about 1,500 square foot. So if you do the math, for every 72 square foot, you should have 14 persons in that area or square footage. But a church is in 25 people. So if you do the number, even 144 square foot, that's only what, 28 persons. It's not even 28, and you're asking 25. So they need to tell us the hard science number they are using, which data they are using, and what are they basing on these protocols they're putting in place. That's why I recommend they need to bring people together, get medical doctors involved, get scientists involved. We have so many of us out there in the US. I listened to Dr. Augustine, great guy. He knows that stuff. Get these people on board. How do you bench it off that before you just come and throw something down the throat of the people? That's why the people are resisting the vaccine thing. The other thing too, I think, is that we have to learn to listen to those people who do not want to take the vaccine. And I am the science person who's going to tell you what the way it is. In fact, yes, the vaccine may not be for everybody, and we have to understand that there are people with religious belief based on some of the ingredients in there, which we know of, we should speak about, that may not feel comfortable taking the virus because of the religious faith. And even if you're going to say everybody should take the vaccine, but you're going to have some reservation because everybody may not want to take it because of certain faith they believe in and certain things. My suggestion to the general public is this: the vaccine works and is the best defense we have right now to stop that spread. We want to get back to a World Clay Music Festival. We want to get back to a Christmas family get together. Now, I have to also let the public know we are doing some work right now on appeals that's going through clinical trials right now. That is going to be a pill that's going to be used for if you get ill with the vaccine and with the virus, that can be used. But here's what you have to understand, people. When you get sick, you got that pill. It might be too late. It's best to get vaccinated, and that vaccination give you a level of protection before you take that pill, because the vaccine will help reduce hospitalization significantly. And that's why the Freedom Party, I give them a lot of credit for being championing the vaccine causes. They did their research. They spoke to scientists. They spoke to medical doctors. I was part of that group. And we advised the Freedom Party on how best to approach it. And that's why they were able to share this information. And ironically, Mr. Boston, I'm very disappointed with all of what's going on and all the articles on the thing that the Freedom Party did to encourage to work in the government. I am asking you, Mr. Boston and Mr. Ito, as Stephen, you guys are in Dominica, have you ever got a call from the government or from the Ministry of Health to meet with you guys? Let's collaborate together to do these things. Even the media, I've noticed, even right here in TuneIn, if I've ever heard all the political parties and stuff being invited, the members, I never heard an official invitation to the Freedom Party to have an hour or two, apart from the Freedom Party, a new program, to give their views. A man like Mr. Boston, who has been in Parliament such of a long time, understand how policies and stuff can be made. I never heard you guys have an hour or so on, like the hot seat or some of those programs, or talking point on DBS or the hang on Kyrie. We are doing this thing wrong. We need to get everybody involved. And when we start getting everybody on board, this is the only way we can fight this virus together. Comment on the radio, I can only do my part. But if the politicians are playing politics with this virus, playing the politics with the life of the people, playing politics with the economy, we are going to have a problem. We need effective leadership. We need people to realize this is a real serious matter. And if we don't get ahead of it, we're going to have a problem. The other thing is, quickly, I want to touch. If you may remember, Mr. Boston, when I was a guest on your program in 2019, that was in 2019, we advised the public, the government, that they should issue in Parliament. And when I spoke about this, you said, Jeff, it doesn't happen that way. Government cannot just do that. They need to go into Parliament, and you explained, which you can explain a bit later, how the rules are done. You told me, Jeff, no, it doesn't happen this way. The government have to go into Parliament. They have to go to Parliament, and they have to make the mask mandate a law. They cannot just go on the radio and say that. And I thank you for the explanation of how government works. You have a lot of experience. These guys should be asking people like you question how to do that. Because when we spoke about this, Mr. Boston, in 2019, we said we advised the government to get ahead of the game, that they should make sure that people are wearing masks in public places and don't take this thing for a joke. Some people call me a mad scientist. I was in Dominica, in the streets of Roseau, wearing my mask. People make fun of me. Even as Scott said, every time I go in the village, in the community, my family can tell you, I always have my mask. In fact, I was in that wedding without all the protocols were gone, I still had my mask. So we advised them. The Freedom Party has given great advice to the government, to the people of Dominica, but they ignore them because there were some political issues. I think I'm going to pause for now because there's a lot to talk about it, because there's all this thing about probiotics. And I mean, this is, I can talk to you about probiotics like pretty much I close my eyes and can talk about it. This is what we do. We need to have the right information. I heard people are talking about, oh, you can take probiotic if the yogurt say probiotic is good. We got to be careful. Because when we take probiotic, we have to know the colony form unit, which if you look at the at the back of the pack of the probiotic you may use, whether it's yogurt or not, it's stand that CFU per gram really is colonial form unit per gram.
But let's get into it a little bit more, Jeff,
Yeah.
on
So,
that
so,
part.
so
Because
I'll just pause for now too, and I would like to hear you guys on your thoughts on the presentation.
Yes, but before the party leader comes in, let me just again commend our frontline workers, which we have always done, and for those who have been out there in the forefront, providing information. I had some nurses who were on the hot seat and on other radio stations talking to the public, and I think the public has to, we ourselves have to, when we, Jeff mentioned that some people feel that people are talking, giving information and talking down to the people. You get that feeling sometimes, but those who are calling as well must themselves be control themselves based on when they call and what questions they ask and the answers they expect and so forth. And I think it goes both ways. So at the end of it, nobody knows. Yes.
That's true. Absolutely. Good point, Mr. West. So again, I of course I support everything Jeff says in terms of the sharing of information. We need to continue pushing that. The Freedom Party has been championing that, as Jeff said. We've been championing that for a long time. I think we were the first ones on the bandwagon to champion that cause. We were always pro-vaccine. We remain pro-vaccine. Now we see many jumping on the bandwagon. Or the other parties trying to do. We've had several forums. We've had several discussion points. We've had several events to educate the public. We brought in the professionals. We've had streaming events. I'm happy to see the other, as they say, imitation is the best flattery, and I'm happy to see the other political parties jumping on that bandwagon to schedule those sort of events and talk events, and we have to continue doing that. It's very important that we do everything we can to give people the right information so they can make the right choices. But there's also something else that I think is important to talk about in this vaccine conversation, because it's not only about sharing the right information. That is absolutely true. But I think we also have to combat those who share bad information. We also have to talk about those who say things that are preposterous. We also have to combat things that are not fact-based. We have to combat superstition. We have to combat conspiracy theories. We have to combat certain ideologies that have nothing to do with health and science, but are simply ideologies that are anti-vaccine as an ideology that has somehow cropped up in the world. And so we have to, I think, do both things. We fully have to educate people, provide information as we've been doing, but I think we also have to push back against those who come up with these most absurd things. There's so many strings of absurdity about the vaccine that one loses track, and it's a sad phase that we're in. I think this pandemic hit at the time where there's a certain wave going through society right now, through the world, an anti-fact wave, an anti-science wave, an anti-professional wave. It's the Donald Trumpism of the global society, where facts don't matter, professionals don't matter. In fact, professionals are looked down upon. The experts are discounted, and somehow those who come up with the wildest, most flamboyant, most crazy ideas are those who triumph. And that's an absolutely dangerous trend for the world to take. And I'm talking about this as a broader trend. It certainly fits into the virus conversation, but the virus conversation is really a subset of that sort of movement away from fact and movement into a fantasy or conspiracy or doomsday fantasies. There are discussions about the virus being containing microchips or being sent by the devil. There are myriads, what I consider crazy notions that have been brought into the discussion. So not only must the Freedom Party provide the information, as we bring the scientific information, but we have to combat those anti-narratives, because at some point those who will be convinced by the data and the evidence and the science will have moved to, and I think we're getting to that point. I think now what we have to challenge and we have to break through is those who have philosophical bad information sense of incorrect or superstitious beliefs about, and I say superstitious in the broad sense of conspiracy theories, of things like global domination by a few elites, the Illuminati, and all these things. And it shocks me, the sort of people who present and talk about this information like it's perfectly acceptable. I mean, I just read an article in the Sun newspaper on a colleague that I knew very well, positioning, making that argument that there is some conspiracy going related to the vaccine, and I find that I'm incredulous, right? So while we share information, and while we bring the scientific facts, I think we have to take a step, and I wrote an article on that some time back in the DNO, got a lot of blows on it, but also some very good feedback, where we have to take stances that we believe are morally right, and we have to take the courageous decisions to say these things are right and these things are wrong, and this stories and this narrative is wrong. And while I am all for understanding and being open-minded to the objections of those who are anti-vaccine, at some point we have to say this is wrong. Not every opinion is correct. People are entitled to their opinion, but not to their own facts. And so we have to take a stance here. We say, no, I respectfully disagree with you. I will not simply accept that there is a super national organization of the Illuminati who's trying to take over Dominica. I will simply not accept that, and said, well, I understand that's what you think, but I will not accept and respect that as a credible position, honestly. And so we have to not only educate, but I think we have to push back on some of the outlandish things that have been said. And I think we have to do that in many aspects of our life here in Dominica. It happens not only in the vaccine scenario, it happens in many scenarios. And I think the Freedom Party is a freedom of principle, fact, science, and we say you're entitled to your opinion, but not to your own facts, and that's the core message that the Freedom Party would stand up on.
Yes, I don't know if Michael has anything you want to add to this before we move to the next topic.
Michael is still with us?
Johnson, you were referring to me?
Yes, Michael, do you have anything you want to add on the discussion here?
Not exactly, because I'm in full support of what was said. What I have some concerns about some of the local practices in terms of the COVID, which I'm not sure why that protocol is being practiced. I'm not sure if it's because people are double vaccinated, but as I mentioned before, you have certain persons who, when they go to a center for testing and they test positive, they put the red band on their hand and they ask them to take public transportation to go home. And these are some of the concerns that I have. I mean, what science are they following? Because I understand that if you are fully vaccinated and you catch the COVID, you can spread it. And if you are not vaccinated and you catch the COVID, you can spread it. I'm not sure, how they could do that, and what is the science behind that. And I'm sure Jeff could maybe address that.
Jeff,
Well, once you're vaccinated, the risk of you getting a virus is less, yes, but you can still get a virus. And that's what we had said in 2019. Even the vaccine comes out, you can get it. The problem here is if once you got the vaccine, I mean, the way the vaccine transmits, it's a respiratory. So if you're vaccinated and you caught it, you may be asymptomatic. Most likely, you may not have really bad symptoms or if any at all, but you still can spread it. And that's why the more people get vaccinated is better. But if this practice is going on, it is wrong because you cannot have people just test positive with a red band and then you put them on public transportation before the people, even if people may have a mask on the bus. Yes, issue the mask will help reduce it. But this is not totally the right practice because right before the person come on the bus or the vehicle give them a ride, if they just blow their nose, they didn't have water to wash their hands and so on. So if this practice is going on, I would recommend that they stop that immediately because this is not helping the situation, causing more problem.
Because I heard the nurse announce that I don't know if in terms of at the center when they test you, if they find you to be positive, they give you a band and send you on public transport. I mean, I've heard that when you go and test, you remain there for a while. When the result comes off, they give it to you, and if they took a little while to get to you, it means that you may bordering on the positive side. And I heard the nurse announce on the radio, and even long before those who came on the hot seat, and made the point that if you are vaccinated and you are tested positive, you get a certain ban on your risk. If you are not vaccinated and say they take you to Portsmouth, when you get a little better, they mention it, they give you a ban that you go home. And when you go home, I mean, you go home on vehicles provided, transportation provided for you, and you stay home with the ban. And if you are out of the ban, you can be charged, and you can be. And if um, somebody else facilitates you being around, then that person too can be charged. And I remember when they told the alarm that anybody who sees a person with a ban should notify the police. So that will have to be checked. What Michael is saying, I don't know if that is completely what is happening in the testing centers. Okay, but we can always check on that.
Yeah, I think we can check on that.
Yes.
I've heard myself reports of people with the ban being around others who either waiting to be tested or transported away from testing, but it certainly does not make sense that such a person would be allowed to be in the public transportation. So it's something to be looked into.
Okay, so again, just to say to our listeners and the population as a whole that we need to all get involved in the fight against the coronavirus because we want to safeguard our people. We want to get our economy back in shape because the longer thing remains that way, is the more difficult it becomes in terms of the employers being able to continue to do business and to employ you, as well as it's create a big pressure on government resources. And in that sense, we all have to play our part and to ensure that the coronavirus, we fight it again. Let's take this call, our first caller here. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I just called to commend you guys for doing what I think is an objective analysis of, of the whole situation. Obviously you guys belong to the different political parties of the government. But what I hear from you is the idea of speaking truth where truth has to be spoken. And that is to support the fact that being vaccinated is a good thing. And one shouldn't oppose it because it is coming from the government. I think, in my book, you guys have increased tremendously credibility. I called the radio station the other day, and I was saying to someone, we shouldn't be able to know your political affiliation based on what you oppose or what you oppose. science, especially as it relates to this vaccination rate. And I do want to commend you for your approach to it, because the government is the one implementing the thing. We shouldn't impose it. When science is what has to determine whether or not it's good or bad.
Absolutely.
That I think is very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do want to commend you for your approach to this. And I do want to encourage everyone to go ahead and get that. Because I talked with one man the other day on the radio station. Obviously I don't live in Dominica. I have to speak here at the beginning today.
Oh, good.
And I was saying to him, why would you oppose something that is good? He admitted that if you're vaccinated, your chances of survival if you got the virus is over 90%. But then at the same time, he was neutral and couldn't advise people because they had to make up their own mind. To me, that is the definition of stupidity. If it increases our survival when we're attacked, then we should be advising everyone to go ahead and get vaccinated. That's not about concern.
Yes, we certainly.
Oh, yes,
We absolutely agree with you.
We agree with you.
The party that we're taking. And we appreciate your feedback and your input and your encouraging word, because it does take a certain amount, as you know, in the Dominica political environment. But we as a party, we believe in speaking the truth, the science, the realities, and that's the platform upon which we want to build ourselves.
And I think you're going to be very hard on that approach.
Yes.
You're going to go very hard on that approach.
Yeah.
And then if you do something good, I need to say that it is good, no matter if your mother is or your father is.
Absolutely.
It's good, it's good.
Absolutely.
And then when you oppose, you have more credibility because you support when it's warranted.
Yes.
And you oppose when it's warranted.
Yeah.
So you have greater credibility with the public.
That's
As
right.
opposed to those people who are just one-sided, and no matter what anybody does, it's wrong because they're against them.
Mhm.
That's totally,
Yes.
absolutely,
But
sir.
thank you very much for your time, and I'm listening to you guys, and I appreciate your discourse this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much,
Right.
and we appreciate your call.
Sure.
Yes, thanks a lot. Yes, but here we've always, and the Freedom Party have always, when something is good, we say it is good. When it is bad, we say it is bad, and we make recommendations as to how to improve it.
Absolutely.
Because we believe at the end of the day, even if you're a party, you're not a party just because you want to be a party. You're a party because you want to serve and serve sincerely and to empower others to do better. So at the end of it, collectively as a country, we can be better off.
Right. I mean, we want to do the right things, and the right things cannot be done unless they're based on facts, reality, and the right principle of being principled people.
Yes.
And we want to improve our society and our community, and we cannot do that unless we are basing it on the reality, the facts, what we as collective, as a party and collectively as a society has determined to be the truth, has determined to be the right thing for our circumstances. And these are the things that we want to push, and political affiliation, political allegiance should not dominate that. Because if we want to be an alternative to what's going on now, we simply have we simply cannot be that. We need to be the antithesis of what's going on right now. And that's what the Freedom Party has always been.
Yes. Okay, so we thank the caller for his call. I think he made some very, very interesting observation and some very sound points. Now, early in the discussion of the COVID, we said that the COVID going to be a great challenge to us as a country. Bearing in mind, it is not just Dominica, it is the world over. Let's take this other call over supply. Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening to you and Mr. Ito. I say, and Mr. Ito. No. You said good evening to Mr. Boston, Mr. Astafan, Mr. Jeff. So I'm saying to Mr. Ito, the party leader, is in the house as well.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Good evening.
No, I know
your
you.
voice by now, so you're all good.
You're welcome.
Yes, you're welcome.
Wonderful program. But I was just something and I really appreciate what he said because there were two young ladies, two young women on math program promoting the yogurt, the probiotics. And I know this is one of the worst things to take because probiotics are yogurt and it contains dairy products. And when it comes to the your respiratory system, this is one of the worst things to take because it's produces mucus. And Jeff mentioned something that I wasn't even aware of it. Whatever the lady mentioned on the back of it, I guess he was talk about it later on. Because in his profession, he knows about what is the probiotic. So I am listening, but I just want to tell him I appreciate what he said because I'm not against the vaccine. I won't promote someone taking it because I'm not taking responsibility if something happens to that person. It's up to them if they want to take it. But we have to live in just be focused and educate the people. Educate the people, that's what's more important. But about the probiotics, I really want to expound on that some more.
Yes.
Appreciate you all and listening.
Thank you very much. Yes. Well, Jeff, you heard the caller?
Yes, it is this guy, the person who called must have looked at some stuff about it, and he's right. A lot of the time, yogurt and probiotic is in dairy. What about the people who cannot take dairy? What about the people who have milk allergens? So when they talk about yogurt and probiotic, it's not the only place you can get yogurt. One of the best yogurts you can actually find is in a capsule form, a combination of Lactobacillus acidophilus and Bacillus coagulans. Now, those two strains are very hardy, and they were the first ones who actually we did research on human beings when we first came from dairy cows into chickens and into humans. And one of the thing I want to tell people, if you buy probiotic in a gummy form, even if you don't say to refrigerate it, please put it in a refrigerator because most of the gummy probiotics have a high content of sugar and humidity and all of that because of Dominica kind of weather. It can get very sticky, messy, and it has some sugar content. So how do you keep that low? You want to keep it in the refrigerator. So there are other ways you can get probiotic, but the ones I really recommend, if you're a woman who having problem, probably young and you probably want to have babies down the road, one of the good ones is Bifidom, they call them BB, Infantis. These are very good strains for ladies. And, just for the general gut, probiotic like Acidophilus, Lactobacillus, KCI, Bravis, these are all very good recommended strains. So you don't have necessarily to get it in yogurt. You can get them in the pill form. You can also get them at a gummy form.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. So I was saying though, earlier in the whole discussion on the COVID, we said the fact that the COVID is not only a Dominica thing, it is a worldwide thing. So it means that every country will face a struggle. I mean, thank God there are those countries that are better off than others, and they may still be able to lend a hand, but it's going to be more strenuous to give the kind of hand that you, as a developing country, would need to take care of in your situation. And what we recommended was the cabinet of ministers, with input from others, the private sector and the trade union movement and employers federation, civil society, so to speak, should then come together. In other words, the cabinet should be made up of two parts during that COVID season, or if you want to call it that. One led by the Minister of Health, who would be handling the medical COVID part of it, and another committee that would focus on the economy. So together we could be organizing as to how to manage the COVID and how we could make the small resources we have work and work well for us. And then the others would be looking at what we can do to increase our activities in terms of the economy, because you have to look at where you can assist the private sector, or creating jobs, giving income to persons who require income to eat and to feed their family and to live. At the same time, our agriculture, that's we may grow food, so we have foods that we can supply ourselves. So if there is a problem from food coming from outside, we have food. And it's always right to depend on your own food. So you have food security and so forth. So organized into two parts. And so together we could look, because say today, tomorrow, COVID, we get something that get COVID out of our life. Then the economy is another thing that we have to be focusing on, because we require the economy to grow, business to expand, people to get jobs and so forth, so they can continue to live. Because I can tell you that this thing is taking a toll on people in terms of, I mean, you see people in the bank every often when they go there, and they go in there because one, the little thing they have saved, they have to go take it out to eat. And we can say thank you to our Dominicans abroad who often in their own struggle too,
Right.
continue to send a little thing for their family down here.
But the economy is certainly something that we must focus on, and I think it's a. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about this, because it's something, as you said, Mr. Lawson, that has not been addressed well. And I think your suggestion and our discussions about having some sort of buy structure where you have a health task force focused on the health aspects of the protocol, so on, and also an economic task force. And it really is a failure of the government, but they don't have an economic task force. In fact, they should be having, press briefings. A second one during the week where you focus on the economic impacts, what's going on from an economic point of view, bringing the business leaders and have that discussion and have the questions answers and have the plans laid out as to what's being done. So I think it's really is a failure that the government has not done something like this. Now it could be, in my opinion, that the government is simply doesn't have the wherewithal to really do that. It does not have the tools, nor the ideas, nor the concepts, nor the sort of economy that we needed to have in Dominica to be able to do this. Because frankly, I mean, there's lots of talk about stimulus and packages and so forth and so on, and some of those things will help. But from an economic point of view, I really do not, in certain countries, certain situations, you could give stimulus packages like in the United States and so on, give people a few $1,000, and that would generate economic activity because people are spending the money and they're going into businesses and so forth, and that could have some effect. But in Dominica's case, I am not convinced that any small stimulus package will really make a difference, because we just simply do not have the economic engine in Dominica to make, to turn those cogs and to create jobs and to create new opportunities. The economic engine in Dominica is very small. We're not producing. The government has not invested in the productive capacity of the country. And so any small stimulus is just going to be used for some basic things, but it's not really going to get the businesses, the sort of economic bang that they need. So what the government really needs to do, in my case, and which they have failed to do over in the past 20 years, going on 25 years now, is to build the sort of economy that is resilient to the sort of external shocks like hurricanes, and now we're talking about the pandemic. The government should have known and realized that we're a small island state and we're very vulnerable to economic shocks. And economic shocks would be something like a hurricane and certainly something like a pandemic. And the government should have been preparing our nation, building a sort of economy that is resilient to that sort of thing. Now, why are we so vulnerable to what's going on in the world from with the pandemic? Because we are still a monocrop economy. We simply translated from agriculture into tourism, but essentially it's a monocrop, right? And it's the same model. It's the same plantation economy model, right? We sell bananas, and if God forbid a hurricane takes it down or the prices fluctuates in the external markets, then we're vulnerable, and these external shocks devastates our economy, devastates our lives. And in the same way, we have the same situation. We have now our crop, as you will, is tourism. People coming in at their own will to spend money. If they decide not to come, or if a pandemic hits as it's doing now, then there will be reduced tourism. And once again, the external market determines our fate. Once again, our lives are impacted, our lives crashes because we do not have an economy that is based on that's not a monocrop economy based on the whims and fancies of what's happening in metropolitan areas. And so a wise government should have long ago realized that we simply cannot continue in this manner. We simply cannot continue to have an economy that is based on that model, and should have translated long ago into a knowledge economy, because that is where you're building structures in the mind, not structures on the ground. That is where you are producing output for the external market, not waiting for internal, external input to be able to survive. And so that's a real feeling of the government. The government talks a lot about the digital economy, but there has not been one effort made to actually create such a thing. What does such a thing looks like? It's people developing software, applications, doing analytics, doing back-end processing for the United States, which is right next door, doing technical support, doing geographic research, doing geology, doing all the things that require professional education and skills and certifications to move us into the 21st century. Now, what happens when you do this? Now, whether there's a pandemic or not, you are still producing for the external world. The world still needs to run, it still needs microchips, it still needs analytics, it still needs the works to be done. All of those things are not dependent on external flows. And so this is an opportunity. It simply reveals the weakness of our economic model, or lack thereof of an economic model, because frankly, the government has made no effort to define an economic model or an economic engine. It simply is going along with what we've always done and just hoping things hang together. So there's no economic plan. There's no vision, economic vision, to build an economic engine in that area. And so that, I think, is the primary lesson that has come from this COVID. It reveals and it exposes, once again, the vulnerability of our economies, the lack of productive capacity of our economy. We are simply not investing in the human capital of our people to produce. We must produce. We must add value to the global value chain, right? We have to be connected into these global value chains, and we have to add value in there, right? And that is not what we have been doing here over the past many years. So in that context, a few dollars here, a few dollars there may help relieve for a few weeks, maybe, may help put groceries on the table, and that's not a bad thing. But if we're talking about how can this government take this, make this economic move, then I don't see much prospects for that approach having any bang for the buck. What we need is a fundamental rethinking and restructuring of our economy, and that has not happened. I'm not sure who the board of economic advisors is. I'm not sure who the economic development experts are. It simply does not seem to have any coherent rhyme or reason of a transformational change. But that's what the Freedom Party intends to bring. We have the people, we have the capability, we understand these things, and we want to transform the economy of Dominica from where we are to an economy that can get us into first world nation status in the next dozen years.
Yes. Let's take a few calls. Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening to you. Thank you. How are you? How is the family? Good, good. Nice. Well, boss, we're talking now, but a while ago you heard the leader. Yeah, he is. He is. Yes. And as a former member of parliament yourself, you will know exactly what. Long ago, long ago. Yes. Yes, I saw that recently. I saw that, and with all this. Mhm. Yeah, they produce, and even the market,
Yeah, no output.
and even the market. Mhm. Trafalgar Falls. Mhm.
And even where they go, we are not really extracting the dollars we can for them because we don't have program set up, we don't have product set up, we don't have an interface set up, a marketing strategy set up to extract the dollars from the people who do business. So it's yes. Yes,
Yes, yes.
with most of the money in their pocket. Right.
Just anything. Yeah. I know it's mhm. Mhm. Yeah, oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yes, it is. Mhm. Yes. Mm. Yeah, oh yeah, golf is key, yes. Yeah, good. Yes. We have to move big. Mhm. Because yes. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. That's right. Yes. Good. Mhm. Some activity.
Right.
Mhm.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks for calling.
Thanks it. We
Mhm.
appreciate it.
In fact, as the caller mentioned, that I always believe that some more effort need to go into sports and culture here,
Yes.
because those who are engaged in these activities should be able to make the income from sports and culture and to bring some money back into on the island. I remember
Absolutely.
when we advised the government long when we became part of when they joined with the first um, English-speaking Caribbean island to have been part of ALBA.
Mhm.
And they were talking about mega ship port. And the idea was that the mega ship would deliver the tourists into a port, mega port, and the smaller ships will distribute them into the various smaller ports.
Sure.
And we recommended to the government, let's borrow from ALBA, the ALBA Bank. I think they had about $1 billion US there. And to demonstrate to the other islands why we went into ALBA and the benefit to us, we borrow and we would go at Point Round
Mhm.
and build a mega ship port there.
Right.
So we'll get ourselves ready for that kind of activity ahead of Barbados and these other islands.
Sure.
They never take heed, and then St.
Right.
Kitts now have a mega ship
Absolutely.
port. We recommended as well when we became part of China, not part of China, but when we
Sign on to the
sign
One
on to
China
the
policy.
One China policy and establish the value relation of China, that we could get the Chinese to bring in cell phones and radio and television parts on the island. and we could assemble them at Kidfield.
Sure.
So it became a Dominican product. You create jobs, one,
Absolutely.
you create business back and forth, and we can get the CARICOM OACS market
Right.
to sell those products. We never take heed because to me, and now you mentioned the question of agriculture and so forth. I mean, we are lucky in Dominica that every city in Dominica has access to land.
Right.
It may not be your personal land,
Right.
but family
For
land.
one or two jumps,
Jumps,
you can get to
we can
land.
get to land.
Yeah.
And we have not used that in a very beneficial way to advantage what we want to do and achieve as a country.
Yeah, I mean, the agriculture, I mean, again, it is a similar approach to agriculture. We have not professionalized agriculture. We have not made agriculture into agribusiness. We need to convert agriculture into agribusiness, right? And to me, every village, or at least every parish, at least, should have a manufacturing center for agri products, for processing. And what you do is you just have timeshares on this. Everybody who has an idea or a concept, who wants to go into agri processing, who has an idea for a product, they want to brand their product, they share that facility. So you could go and manufacture your cocoa, manufacturing your cheese, whatever is the same equipment, the same concepts. And you simply say, well, from Mondays to you have this, and Tuesdays I have it, and so on. And you have this cooperative set up so that you can actually make people do value-added products. We should not have mangoes and fruits wasting all over the place. All of these things should be processed.
Yes. Hello, good evening, caller. You're on. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Buster.
Good evening to you. How are you? Hello.
Yeah. How you doing?
We're doing fine. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Let me see who will this to your bed, Jeff, and party leader. And my
Good
friend,
evening.
Michael. Long time I don't have Michael, man. I was wondering what happened to him.
He's there. He's all right.
Yeah, man. Michael, big up, man. That's all, you know, the thing, I just want to comment on the economy and the COVID and the vaccine. It will always have some people, right, also, that will be anti-vax. And that is, I talking through the history of vaccine. But as Jeff said, I think if we trust people and give them the correct information, people will make good decisions. I really believe so because right now what happening, you have a lot of propaganda on the internet. And I'm going to show you a show, the Russians right now are mastering the act of propaganda over the internet. So everybody could put out anything on the internet and people read it and believe it's facts. But if you give people the right information, I think people will make the right decision. But also something happened and it really troubled me. I'm getting to understand that somebody coming to the hospital without COVID and went out of the hospital with COVID. How does that happen? You know, I think it's ridiculous. I couldn't believe it was so. You come in the hospital without COVID and you catching COVID in the hospital. So these people that setting the protocol is something definitely wrong with them. You know, I think it's like a shame and I couldn't believe it. But another thing on the economical side also, we have to face reality again. When you have Dominicans not in charge of the finances, Dominicans are not in charge of the priorities. Because we know our front side is water and soil, good soil. That's what Dominica was built on. That's what most people get educated in Dominica on. Agriculture. That is what we have. That's what God blessed us with naturally. And when you destroy that muscle, I listen. I don't know, but our foundation in Dominica will be forever agriculture. But we are not controlling our finances. We are foreign us controlling Dominica money. They know. Foreigners have no account. They have no oversight. But to this day, people talking about government. This administration also, honestly, for Dominica to the lost school. After 20 years, they have failed to develop the economy, to expand the economy. How many jobs have you created in is a way of life, respect. You know, we have different opinions, we have different religions, we have different political parties, but the foundation, the bottom is Dominica.
Yeah.
We will sit down around the table honestly and discuss and let the best person, the best idea, and I always tell you that possible.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I always listen to the program, and I know you guys to do your best, and you are real free on my culture, because right now I'm getting confused. When people say, because I said already, I was influencing politics under the Freedom Party. But when I say under the Freedom Party, it's not the Freedom Party today. I'm talking about the old guard. And we have seen what become of the old guards, like Paul Bello. And I don't want to go wrong there.
Yeah.
You understand?
No need for that.
Because they are betrayed the principles of integrity, principle, honesty, loyalty to the state, to the rule of law. So also I always respect you, man. You know that, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
And we are working to build those principles back. And
Yeah.
as the caller said, these are the principles of the Freedom Party. They may have been subverted, they may have been skirted around, but they have not died. They have lived on in the mind of those who believe in the principles of the Freedom Party, and that's our mission, is to bring that back.
Yes.
That's the platform that we're building on.
And Michael, in terms of the economy, I don't know if you have.
Yeah, the economic challenges that we faced because of COVID, I do not think that the government has an understanding of how the economy operates, the impact of small business on the economy, and that the stimulus that should go to small micro businesses, self-employed people, they don't understand how that can, stimulate the economy, the stimulus. The United States didn't give us stimulus because they wanted to give us stimulus. They recognize that they have to keep the economy going, and by giving us stimulus, people have buying power, and that would keep the economy moving on. But I cannot imagine in a country you have a crisis like that and you have not called in the partners in development, the private sector, the unions, what we call a tripartite grouping, with the partners in development, even the churches, to see how do we move the economy forward. In what way? What are the challenges? How do we promote, and deal with the vaccine hesitancy, and to get the economy going? This government has failed miserably in that regard. They talk about climate resilience and they have their creed. But what are they doing? That was an ideal opportunity to implement the measures of climate resilience in terms of the COVID. But I don't think the government understand how the economy works. And I think the partners in development need to pull up their socks and get the government into a meeting. Because when Freedom Party was in power, we had what they call an administrative review committee made up of the private sector, the unions, and all the partners in development. And when you have an issue like that, once you call a meeting, everybody will give their ideas on the way forward. And you will find that white paper will be circulated. And within 2 weeks, a position paper done. But this government has no idea, and they feel that the one man knows everything.
Right.
So
Yes,
you
okay.
cannot run an economy that way. You need to ensure that you involve everybody, all the partners in development, so that you can find a solution that would be workable, not something that you will want to try by divide and rule, which is what we see he was doing with the buses and so forth.
Yeah.
We need to really call him out and to demand that he respects the partners in development and do something constructive for the people that will stimulate the economy and get the economic machinery working. I mean, we can't just sit back and allow him to do what he wants. I think that is wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Michael,
But he still does miserably.
yes. Michael, you made the point about the public review commission.
The policy review committee.
Committee, yes. I remember that committee. I remember that committee met very often. It was not a committee just
once a month. It met once a month,
yes.
Johnson.
It was a committee in action.
Yes.
And they look at stuff that was really in the interest of the country. Because in a democracy, you don't govern democracy for yourself. You govern the democracy with the help of others to make things happen for the society as a whole.
Less people can wait there, you're Ted Bosso.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And if you, as a Eugenia Childs, was somebody who engaged everybody, you had to be prepared when you go to that meeting. You couldn't go there and talk nonsense, you know. Everybody who came to that meeting was well prepared.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way it should be. We should have point-based discussions.
Yeah. Okay, let me take a call now.
The union was prepared. Everybody used to prepare, and we would get results.
Yeah,
but right now,
take a call there, Michael. So hold on.
I have no idea what's going on.
Yes. Okay, hold on a while. I'm going to take a call. Hello, good evening. Yeah, good evening. Michael, can you please mute the mic?
Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead, caller. Thanks.
Yes, good evening, Mike Bernard and
Jeff.
Wisconsin.
Jeff.
Yeah. Good evening to you guys.
Yes.
Always great program, always a great program. But you guys touch on the economy. I want to bring up 2 points that shows how short-sighted our government is in terms of development. And it makes me realize there are 2 things: either they deliver or have no clue what they do. A few months ago, we had an issue with Indian fugitives coming from Antigua. And between the Antiguan government and the Dominican government, we saw some questionable activities that were borrowing the line of illegality. About a month later, I was listening to the radio station, and it said the government of Antigua is partnering with a group in Israel to try to find out how they can increase their water supply. And I'm sitting there shaking my head, and I'm saying, we have an island of Dominica where millions of gallons of water flow to the ocean. And instead, our 2 leaders try to negotiate how we can provide Antigua with water supply. They could adopt a river. They could, build dunes for a river and use it to supply the people in Antigua, who, by the way, has a large population of Dominicans. We were there trying to do mischief behind the door. And in the meantime, Antigua is going to all the way to Israel to find out how they can increase the water supply. Here is an economic opportunity. The second thing is, we heard recently that the Prime Minister is in Dubai on a Expo 2021. And all we heard was he was going out there to talk about the economic citizenship program. We're not touching something earlier about agricultural production, adding value to our goods. And here it is again, I'm asking myself, if we are spending this kind of money to go on this, why don't we go to Dubai, meet these people, and try to find markets for our produce, or not just our raw materials, but our processed goods, our juices, our cane, our fruits, I mean, you just name it. And take, for example, you look at mango production. Instead of selling mangoes raw materials to the market, you could say, what other products I can make from mangoes that will run out of the farmers to have to increase their production. And Tomorrow you have a prime minister who's going to an expo, bringing along a bunch of other ministers, and not one Dominican produce, not one Dominican material is being done over there, so it can provide a market for your guys, not even a bottle of water to say, hey, we have millions of gallons filled to the sea. Dubai and the area of Dubai are developed. They probably going to have water shortages in the next year. They have enough money to get 2 free for tankers and coming to Dominica and supplying that area with water. What about doing this kind of things that's going to generate long-term sustainable economic growth for Dominica? Have we seen any of that, folks? Absolutely not. For the last 15, 16 years, our government is hell-bent on selling its citizenship, prostituting the country, and every minister that comes in says, if it's not passport, what else? So it tells me these guys are actually willful, deliberate, or have no clue what they're doing. And I think they're simply diverse of ideas. And what they're doing is they're so deep into the scandal and the misdeeds that they have to continue making excuses for the silly activities. At this point, COVID is not our problem. I say our bad governance is the problem. Our government is boosting us billions of dollars in profit. Yet still we have no results. So if we have all this money, we shouldn't be complaining about COVID. COVID is just for a time. And I think COVID has exposed how vulnerable our government system that's been held and frankly on just winning election and not the sustainable development of Dominica. That's where we find ourselves.
That's right.
I think we have to find some way to get the government out and get the changes that are necessary to develop our case. And I'm listening. You guys have a good night as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very good.
Good.
Well, as the caller said, I mean, the real epidemic is the government. The real epidemic, the real, honestly, the disease that is keeping Dominica in a certain frozen state of not progressing. The real infection, I think, really is this type of governance that we have. So that's the epidemic, the ultimate epidemic we have to deal with, because it's not only the prime minister and the immediate cabinet, but there are cells, there are cancer cells all throughout society of controlling different institutions and different organizations and so forth. And so it's a total reboot necessary. We need to apply some cleaning of the economy. But that's the sort of thing that is necessary. We understand that governance is central to development, and that's what we're working on aggressively going after, to give Dominica a chance to recover to its potential.
Yes, the caller is correct when he made the point, because we have spoken about the question of water, the amount of water we have. We talk about government should be busy with the Wasco in Antigua and in Barbados, negotiating for portion of land, St. Martin, a portion of land to establish.
It's just,
it
seems obvious, right?
Yes, it should be obvious. We're doing that.
Jeff, I thought,
one second.
Yeah, what I was saying, if Mr. Boston remembered, when I was in Dominic recently, we came from the hatchery and we were talking about agriculture. And I remember one of the gentlemen in Salisbury was talking to us about the Wasco plant that stuff they have out at Baytown. And I explained to them, this is a multi-million-dollar business they have in Dominica that can help their community, and realize that. What do? You collect all this raw sewage, you treat it. Again, you go back to alternative instead of chemical, using probiotics like Bacillus lycoinformis, Amalicofacianis, Megatherium. These are things we do that you help reduce the solid, and then you treat it, and the rest from that, what do? You take that and add soil to it, and here you have natural fertilizer. That Dominica can be the hub for natural fertilizer in the Caribbean. I remember Mr. Boston made a very valuable point to me. He said, one other thing they can do with the Wasco, imagine Barbados, St. Martin, Antigua, ABC Islands, even Saint Eustatius, those islands. Imagine the Wasco can go out there, and from that same plant in Baytown, you make that an island, you build it out, and then from that same plant, you run the clean water there, and you have the boat running it right there. And Mr. Boston had a great idea. He said, one of the things the Wasco can do is to set up, imagine you have the Wasco Storage Center in St. Martin, in Barbados, where weekly or how many days per week you go and you refill the storage tank, and the people in those islands are using the water from the natural island. What a wonderful thing. We have to understand the day of technology. These things are possible. I'm not speaking about something that I'm asking somebody to move a mountain. This is what we do here in the city of Milwaukee. Milogany. If you look it up, Milogany, this is what they do. They have this island, Jones Island. We provide them the probiotic. We help them treat it. We go there. We do the different tests. As a matter of fact, these products can actually change wastewater into better water system that a lot of countries are drinking right now. So we have to take the opportunity that we have. The caller is right. You have to look at your resources. You got plentiful of water. Let's use it. Another thing again, quickly, as the time is going on, I heard the Prime Minister recently in his summit thing talk about poultry and all of that. Here we are. We have made the move. We have made the move for years applying for VAT-free on hatching eggs. They finally gave it thanks to the folks like Dr. Thomas and Sentiment, the folks at the Ministry of Agriculture there and Forestry Division. They listened to our call. We made the plea. They made it happen. Now, what you should be doing as a government is to work. You have an abattoir in place. You should be working together with the farmers of Dominica. Give them some sort of incentive. I can't think of the word now. Subsidy is the word I'm looking for. You can give them some sort of subsidies to help the farmers, where you say, okay, we have the abattoir, we're going to start it for 10, 20 farmers, 100 experts, we pay for the feed, we pay for the chicks, and then you sell it to the abattoir. But the problem the farmers are having...
Lots of opportunities are being missed, for sure.
Well, but the problem the farmers are having...
To the final topic here, but you're right, lots of opportunities are being missed, for sure.
Yes, but I just made the point, though. I just want to tell them quickly that listeners, that the Freedom Party put a water line straight to the port and one at the cruise ship berth.
Yeah.
So you don't have a difficulty for any ship to come on the Deepwater Harbor or the cruise ship berth in Roseau and to fill up with water and to take to where it's going.
But good point,
yes. Now the time is eating us up, and we have another topic here and those things. But we can always come back in the wrap-up session and cover some of the areas we may want to cover before we end.
Right.
But in recent days, we have heard some information going around and talk about who the Freedom Party victimized and who did not victimize. I want to say here the Freedom Party have made its contribution to Dominica's development. Dominica has a history of, political, if you like, not turmoil, not, I don't want to call it struggle, but a history of political struggle, yes. Struggle, to use a mild word. And all parties in Dominica, all parties, I mean, if what is going on would have been something to take a deep breath, a different approach at our politics, the way in which we run our politics, the way we do our politics, I would support that. And where it would say, okay, our politics must be issue-based, it must be about what we want to, of policy and programs, and how we're going to empower people rather than personality, I would support that 100%. But if it's to regenerate the same old politics that we had in the 60s and the 70s, then to me, personally, this is rubbish, frankly speaking. Every party have hit each other on fringe. Sometimes when you look at it, it's neither there nor there. I mean, I heard from a prime minister last night talk about who called him name and who called this name. I've heard they call Eugenia Charles, Penny Nipanti, Madam Jacula, all kind of names. Right. So these are the things we had in our politics. I mean, she was called Mamu not as a form of, promotion, but to degrade her. Like you all one roll your rosary. Right. And the YFM turned that name from Mamu in a negative to Mamu in a positive. I know a politician who said to Alan Carbon in Cottage, who is Alan Carbon to be running for freedom? You tell him to handbag boy, go and buy bread. And we tell them, say, a politician is a servant. Right. So if that politician did not want to be a servant of people, then they have no right to be in politics. So there's always the back and forth. I know in terms of corruption, every party have accused each other of being corrupt. I know, I wouldn't probably call this thing, but a friend of mine said, it was in the UWP, he's now in the States. He had called Alan Carbon corrupt. You know, I know
Right.
Ian Douglas has called somebody corrupt. In opposition, have always been that kind of politics. Okay? I remember in 1995, Brian Allen said Brian Allen led the Freedom Party, and he was called lazy by a committing party. So there's
Right.
always that kind of, I would call it, unnecessary input into our politics. And if we're looking to change that, then fine. But to come now and try to show that the Freedom Party did eat and do all of these things, to me, it's just foolishness. The Freedom Party have made a remarkable contribution to Dominica's development over the years, as well as the Labour Party, the UWP. This party in government has done some good things, they have done a lot of bad things, and so forth. And I said to somebody who spoke to me about this thing, I deal with every case on its own merit. We have a culture here in Dominica, if we well if you today, you are not wrong on nothing.
Right.
If we vex with you tomorrow, all your right become your wrong. That is nonsense.
Right.
I think we have to go politics of whether we differ in freedom or in labor, UWP, there can still be a level of camaraderie. One thing I can say for people like Patrick John and Michael Douglas, these persons, they never hold a grudge of politics. They give you their blows. I remember Michael Douglas said to me in Parliament once, I just came in there, 26 in Parliament, and he said, Madam Speaker, I'm looking at the government side, and I'm seeing failures, government side. But I'm seeing this young guy, this young Boston guy with an innocent face. Young man, what crime have you committed to be sitting there? So this has always been that case. So to come now and play as if we're victim, and it's, to me, it's just not necessary what is required now in this thing. And what we should not do is, if you do something good in your past, we can deal with your present situation, but don't take everything and lump into one old basket as being ungood. And a lot of things were said to try to put the Freedom Party in bad light, and we have discussed these things. We've looked at it, put all these facts together. I spoke with a couple of people today who have information, and if need be to defend the Freedom Party, then we have no choice to do that. We don't want to go into an exchange with anybody and what. I mean, there was a eulogy read, fine, that we agree with the eulogy, and I called Mark program yesterday afternoon, and I made the point that nothing wrong in a eulogy being read, because sometimes you put in a eulogy and so forth. But when these things continue to take the wrong, and people now are busy around now on all media houses talking and who the Freedom Party victimized and who did not victimize, I have the reasons altogether as to why those things happened. Okay, I have all of these reasons, which I'm not going into tonight, but the Freedom Party have made its contribution to Dominica's development. We lost government in 95, the Labour came in 95, they lost government in 2000, the Labour Party came in, with Rosie Douglas, he passed away, none of us saw he was dying. He passed away in the same year, December of the same year. Then Pierre Charles took over, he died 4 years later. Then this present prime minister is here. We disagree with his style and how he run government, but we should not take that and make a mockery and give everybody a bad rap in our discourse. And just to quickly say though that I see reference was made to Social Security, which was their party. I mean, when I was checking to the Lee Blair established Social Security, he met President Fund.
Right.
Lee Blair.
Right.
And Patrick took it over as new prime minister.
Right.
And the Freedom Party,
yes,
and the Freedom Party now amended it, because a lot of people opt to go at 55, because they said, well, at 55, I will be a little still young and still agile and I can work, so I'll go at 55. But people take a mortgage to do their house, then their children come to go to college, university, and so on, they mortgage their house again. Right. So they're always in debt. So the 55 comes so fast that they find themselves after they go 55, that now they still need to work to earn, to pay their mortgage and pay their loans. The Freedom Party amended the law to give a bridging that if you retire at 55, you have to wait until you're 60 to get your Social Security. That was bridged. The building you see there was built under the Freedom Party by E.H. Charles, was the construction of that building.
Sure.
So this idea of distorting thing and one people to look good and some look bad, I think this is not necessary, to be honest with you. Yeah. And reference was made, not calling my name last time, but reference was made who calls say don't go into the thing and so on. I didn't say don't go into the thing, because when the first prime minister died, everybody I heard spoke, including this Curtis Augustus, who spoke the Tuesday, got in the Wednesday, and by the Friday, said positive thing. The Freedom Party spoke with the media call,
Sure.
and like that positive thing about the former prime minister. That's where to go. I can understand, yes, there are times books will be written and things will be written and so forth. But if there is a deliberate attempt to silence people's contribution to Dominica because of political malice, then it means that has to be confronted. And I'm saying we're not going into any exchange with people with their views, everybody free to their views, but they have to expect to, if the Freedom Party is put in bad lights, it deserves the right to correct
to defend us
and to correct.
correct the history and to make sure that the facts are known. And I think that's the key point.
Right.
The key point is, and what's going on now with this media rounds of making, and the legacies of such and such. I mean, and people are entitled to look at the folks and say positive things, because everyone has positive things that they've done and negative things. But I think this latest episode highlights something that's very important: the lack of history education in our school system, our local history. It is unacceptable that it is so easy for a group of individuals to simply rewrite history, to simply reinvent, to cherry pick the events and to cherry pick the episodes of things that were done to paint a particular picture of reality, of our political history. It is not acceptable. So every child should be taught the reality, the facts. And as we talked about earlier, about the Freedom Party being the party of facts, the Freedom Party being based on the correct information and trying to make the right decision based on the right principles, it's the same issue at play. So now that we as the party of principle, as the party of truth, as the party who do not try to manipulate things to their advantage, we only want to do the right thing. We must say that a lot of what is being said there is simply a distortion of truth. It is cherry picking particular things, and while you may say, well, these things, in fact, were good things that were done, but when you ignore the bad things that were done, you distort reality. And when you try to reposition, and when you say ignore certain historical facts and documented evidence and case evidence and court documents, and say ignore these things, they're all untrue, these things never happened, there was never any value of pig story, then you are actually distorting the reality to your advantage. And that is not a principle that the Freedom Party can deal with. And we have to push back on that stuff, because we're pushing back on all these things. We're pushing back on conspiracy theories, we're pushing back on distortion of history, we're pushing to establish the facts of what happened in our history, for better or for worse, and it should not be used for political advantage. The facts are what needs to be taught, and the facts are what need to be embraced. Good and bad, the reality of what actually existed.
And to say though, a good historian, when you're writing history, you're not only writing history just for your circle, you're writing history for the world. So anybody can pick up
posterity
of all of humanity and so forth. So in that case, you want to check records, dates, you want to cross-check stuff to make sure whatever you put in there is correct. I was saddened when I heard reference was made to Honeychurch, because he was a fundamental member and he was in the Freedom Party. Then he wrote history surrounding the Freedom Party. To me, I think that is sad, because Leonard's Honeychurch work have benefited the society at large, school children and persons. And as I said, a good historian, history has to be 99.9% accurate.
Yes.
Right.
Certainly as accurate as you can get.
As you can get. A person might get a blow, and I might say he got a blow with a stone. Another person might say, well, he got a blow with a piece of wood. And we can debate that. Now, the person who got the blow might even know what he did, because he fell.
Right.
He got a blow and fell. So he's unconscious, he don't know.
Right.
It's the person who used the object that will say what he used to hit the person.
Sure. And
so forth. So we might have a little, confusion there as to what object was used.
Also,
but the operating fact is that the person got a blow.
The person got a blow, and you cannot say that person missed the blow or did not get the blow, or that it was a pleasant blow.
A pleasant blow.
Right? You simply cannot distort the fact
and so forth.
Right.
So I was at the same breath. Reference was made to work written by Henkel Christian. Henkel Christian has a good side, a very well appreciative side to his politics.
Right.
I remember him as a man of honor, a man of discipline,
Sure.
and the kind of, well, what I was looking for is the tribal politics.
Right.
That's what I was looking for, that we've always had in Dominica. If we are on a course to change that, because I remember Eugenia Charles, let's be honest, I was saying to somebody, what Lennox is going through in terms of the kind of verification that is getting there.
Right.
Eugenia Charles went to that,
And maybe worse too.
as a bourgeois,
Right.
and all of those kind of things.
Yes.
I remember she was in some interview, I think, and in some book I read, and she said, they gave me, but I gave them as much as they gave me.
Right.
She didn't say, well,
Right.
they gave me, I didn't give them.
Right.
I said, they gave me,
Give forgive.
give, forgive.
Yeah.
That's all in our politics. So if we are
Right.
saying now, let's change that culture,
Right.
that's a good route to be on.
Right.
But if
Sure.
it's to rewrite history and to bring all kind of thing on,
Right.
then the facts will come and speak for itself.
The
And
facts
are stubborn things.
Facts are stubborn things, and that's the issue. Because you see, it's an insidious thing. It's not a good thing for a society. In fact, a lot of what is happening now with the current government and the ability to rewrite situations on spin, to redefine the boundaries of what happened, to redefine what happened, to redefine what happened with Bonnie Manuel, to redefine what what the airport project is about, to redefine, to remove the boundaries, to constantly redefine reality. And realities as those in power say, and so we cannot embrace that. And I know some of the people involved in this recent incident are people who are actually who have a different opinion of the government, who actually do not support the government. But you cannot try to redefine history to a particular point of view, and at the same time accuse the government of doing the same thing, of redefining situations to fit their narrative, to spin and to take the good and position Lennox as a monster, to position people as this and people as that, and to use narrative and cherry pick facts to paint narratives and to do those things and to redefine reality for something, and to convince young Dominicans and many Dominicans that what they're doing is right and they should be worshipped for it. But you can't be against that and then do the very same thing to rewrite the historical reality. So I think it's just a bad idea. It's an idea not based on principle, and the Freedom Party will fight against that.
I think Michael wants to do something, but Michael, the time is quickly rushing out. So
maybe quickly.
Yes.
Well, Johnson, all I have to say is I have listened to several programs post that announcement at the funeral, and they seem to be trying to divide from the haves and the have-not. And I was even surprised at a statement Edison Gibbs made on the Freedom Party last night. From what I know from the Freedom Party, more people got out of poverty under the Freedom Party government than any other government. More people owned homes, more people were able to send their people to universities and so under the Freedom Party. And giving the impression that, the Freedom Party didn't contribute significantly to the development of Dominica and that they kept down poor people. I think that is an inaccuracy that has to be corrected.
Yeah. Yes. In fact, he made a point last night about the Freedom Party being racist, and and the reason for that, he was taken by the media. The reason for that was one. I know the person he's speaking about, a young man from Jamaica, is another young man now, made a statement. Because sometimes when I meet and people say things. Because as a boy, I attended Labour Party meeting, I attended Freedom Party meeting.
Sure.
I mean, my first encounter with Patrick is in '75, when they had a big meeting in Maho, they were launching Vicar there. And I went there, so I was 14 years old when that. and so forth. And I continue following. When the workers came on the scene, I went to workers' meeting, I went to freedom meeting. Even while I was a parsec, I still show up at those meetings because to me, I don't have any political malice in me to say, well, I in politics to hold on people. I helped people in when I was a parsec, and these very people later on moved to another party, and they don't care whether I live or die. That's the reality of how public it is in our culture, and so forth. But these things in terms of this political anchor and so forth have always been there. So we want to change that into a more pleasant approach of politics where we discuss the issues and encourage people to come forward, issues, policies, programs, and people come forward to represent their people. And when you are elected a member of parliament, you're respected. I mean, we come here and make statement when the government manhandled the opposition in parliament. People tell us, but why you're defending the opposition? In fact, this Labour Party like to say we have to be WP. First of all, they'll tell you because why? We stand for what is factual, what is true.
Right.
That's what we stand for, no matter who it is.
Who it is.
We stand for that.
Exactly.
I'm not saying those in freedom in the past were perfect beings. I'm not saying
There's
that.
not perfect beings in any
any
party.
part of it, but
at least the core principle
yes,
is to stand for what is right, what is true, and what is progressive.
Yes,
That has been the
and the underlying thing is that the Freedom Party has made a remarkable contribution to Dominica's development.
I mean, there is no doubt. I mean, that again illustrates the need to teach history and to teach civic history, because if the facts were known, it would be obvious.
Yes.
This sort of contribution of the Freedom Party, electrification, rural growth, the banana boom. I mean, on and on and on.
I remember once when we had the by-election in Portsmouth after my pass, we had a public meeting there, and Samson Carbon deceased said something on the platform. And all of us, I was in my 20s, all of us were very upset. And the next day, Eugene Richard summoned the whole cabinet and party executive to, and she told Carbon, I was very embarrassed, disappointed in what you had to say. Carbon felt, he said, for traction.
Right.
Because some people get carried away in politics.
Right.
But the rest of us come on him.
Right.
And so
exactly.
forth.
And
that's the way it should be, and things like that. So these things, sometimes people say things they should not see.
Right.
And so because I'm up to the other people tell me, oh, Brian was lazy. I say, wait, I see Michelle said Brian. Michelle never said so.
Right.
Michelle said when she traveled, Carbon act for her. She will not just clay. That's what she said. Right. So the guy tell me, well, she was technically saying Brian was doing it. and you don't agree his interpretation. And you don't really see that's why you don't rephrase it that Brian is lazy.
Right.
So they feel give them political traction, but Brian is a respectable man in society.
And the man was a judge.
He just happened to go into politics, and some people don't go into politics. I know people who are freedom, and they're very upset if we to the I'm not a Labour.
Right.
They're very upset, but that is their cross to carry, my own to carry.
Sure.
But having said so, I just think we ought to deal with the facts, and we ought to promote and present the facts. And so I say last caller, let's see if we can take this last
one
caller.
more. Yeah.
Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
And I have knowledge, and that was something I was saying in other quarters, living on by the absolute head of the party, but somewhere along the line, that was the perception.
But
that's what it was, right?
No.
So,
The part.
The fact that the gentleman said that one platform, he referenced that, and he said, a reporter brought up to him, why did you see that? You're fear-mongering. And he said, no, check the facts, and he spoke to the Prime Minister. That's the reporter, and then the Prime Minister said, yeah, she doesn't like that. And Mr. James said, to her credit, she said, that's the Prime Minister at the time, Senior Charles, to her credit, she rebuffed it. However she rebuffed it, he said that she rebuffed it to her credit. And he indicated that, he was pleased about that rebuff.
Yes,
Of the statement, right?
Yes, yes.
So I'm making the point that Mr. James went ahead to upgrade into that. And if we're talking about fairness in history and all that, one of the things that I think the Freedom Party has to do is speak in clarity about history and about perhaps mistakes they may have made. Now, when we look at the history of the Freedom Party and what the Freedom Party did, one of the mistakes the Freedom Party made, which I think was a great mistake that the Freedom Party made, that was not, is supporting this idea that there was extreme and excessive corruption within the United States Party. So if we're talking about rewriting history, I think that is something that the Freedom Party has easy, that's an easy fix that they can hit and say, listen, there was actual corruption or no, there was not corruption, and go along with what you did that it was just a tactic to move forward and remove the United States Party from office. So if this is a win or not. So in this whole vein of rewriting history or correcting history, I think that is something that also has to be done.
Yes.
And I brought up the previous point because Mr. James, as much as he is a political opponent, heavy and much political opponent at the time of the Eugenian Church, he could have easily have left that on the table. But
No.
he made sure that he clarified this. Not credit, he rebuffed that thing.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of clarity. Yeah? There's a lot of things that we address and make public what we see is the truth.
Yes.
So I think those are one of the issues that we need to address because I think this corruption thing was fun. The people who we have to display as a corrupt, they are the ones what the definition of corruption is. All agree on that.
But,
At the end of the day, just wrap up. I think going down the road of using history to create a no is a mistake for calling for. If we are dealing in history, let us capsulate that history as what it was and deal with what we need to see. You see, the last time we spoke about specifically about the history, but to take that no, I'm not saying that the Freedom Party is doing it.
no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. No, no, no. No, we're not doing that.
We're ensuring the facts.
Right. The thing is,
Yes.
I appreciate you calling because the point I made was to show that, I mean, a whole party could be declared as being racist because one person made a statement. But I was about to qualify what Mr. James said in terms of what the reporter said. But in the discussion, sometime another person comes to speak and your trend of thought is kind of sidelined. So that's why I did not think. But I was about to make the point that he said so. But what I was saying is essentially wanted to bring across is that a whole party could be declared as being racist because one man made a statement. I say I know the guy and so forth, and I give the example of Carbon. But the point you said about what Mr. James said is correct because he did say the reporter was a bit shocked, and the reporter then went to Ms. Charles and whatever happened. Right. On the question of the corruption under the UWP government, we have said listen. We have said on many occasions that what the Europe was criticized for, we have said so. What we are seeing today is by far, far more than what the Europe was criticized for. Far worse. And therefore, it's only, and we have said that here, is only a dead man or a fool that cannot change his mind. We have made that point there. Clearly, so we have shown that.
Right.
And I made the point earlier on that in every campaign, you have heard people, it may not be the main people in the parties, but you have heard people who get carried away in their utterances, and they have said things about people, about corruption and so forth. I mean, there was a campaign when they said about me, I became a senator at 26. I was in parliament for the party loss in 95. I was out unemployed and so forth because I was working fisheries. I had to resign to become a senator. I took my losses. And I was put on platform and say I had a house in St. Lucia.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people say what they want to do about people. People came on platform in Maho in the by-election I contested and say things about me that as a young man raised up in Maho there.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
I raised up in Maho with my mother. She taught all of us how to clean ourselves, clean the place,
Right.
sweep the yard, washing dishes. In fact, on a weekend, my job on a Saturday was to get what is called a carbolic soup and what do you call that thing? Steel wool,
Right.
and to shine the pots.
Right.
And I raised that way.
Right.
And then people came and take us into a platform as a big man.
Right.
I'm a big man in my 20s running for election.
Right.
And I made it on a platform.
Yeah.
I was in Thin River washing plates.
Yeah.
And so these petty things come into politics.
Yes.
And sometimes it's not the main operators, but people who feel
Right. The side snipers.
right.
Sometimes it's hard to keep everybody in the party under control.
Under control.
And you're going to have some people, some loose cannon that will say something that can be discredit on the party. That certainly shouldn't
be. So I'm saying if
what you use as your criteria to judge the party.
Yeah. So if we are talking about, let us change the style of our politics, and we should take a politics of issues and policies and programs, then I agree with that and so forth. But just for the caller who just called a while ago, I appreciate his calling to clarify that, because I was about to bring that in, but I got a little sidetracked.
Sure. So thank you
on
the issue of the corruption, though, I mean, you have to understand the context, right? I mean, now into this context, you look back at what the GOP was doing and accused of doing, and you say, well, maybe that wasn't so bad after all. But you have to understand the context of the time. You know, the Freedom Party was a squeaky clean party.
Mm-hmm.
There was no allegations of corruption or those sort of things. And in fact, going back, the whole thing was revamped. So the things that the UW were accused of, or the shady behavior that they were thought to be undertaken, at that time was a big deal to the perception of the public and to the perception of the political parties. Certainly, in 2020 hindsight, you stack that up against what the current government is doing, and you say, well, that was not so bad after all. But 2020 is always, hindsight is always 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, the reality was there was that perception, and this is politics. And if you don't put itself in the position to be perceived in certain instances that way, then that was just the reality of what was occurring at the time.
And so in that case, I support a new approach to our politics.
Right.
One where government and opposition can see themselves as servant of the people and work together. There are times we will have campaign and we'll have criticism and we'll have this and so forth. But even the way this government is behaving, to me, we are in COVID. And we said the point early on, beginning of the program, that the Prime Minister was on another radio station and rather focusing on COVID, he was focusing on the opposition like he's possessed with Lennox and so on. So these are things we have to end if we want our young people to adapt to politics of sense, of service, and of politics of unity.
Certain level of respect to being a politician.
To be a politician.
Being a statesman and stateswomen rather than the politician for all the implications.
Because partly, if you listen to this government now, you'd certainly say, after Christopher Columbus came here, it was them,
Yeah, they were probably on the ship too.
They were on the ship.
Yeah.
Nobody else did anything. We said here, the UNP did good, the Freedom Party did good, Labour did good, Labour before, Labour now, and all parties did bad. But as to how you weigh the bad, is something else. I mean, look, a quick example. I mean, a lot of people tell you Libya built Melbourne Airport. But the airport was built by Frank Barron.
That's right.
And when Frank Barron lost the election, Libya did the finish construction and open it.
Yes, got the credit for it.
And if you know this Frank Barron, if you read history properly, Frank Barron was linked with Norman Manley of Jamaica, Sir Brantley Adams of Barbados, and Eric Williams of Trinidad. They were the three guys who were leading Caribbean business in governance. And Barron became, and these are things that you can read and say. And if you know this, people don't even know Barron was a chief minister. But anyway, we have to go because
I guess, yeah.
So we just want to call on. Yes. So final thoughts, Jeff and Michael. Jeff, quickly, don't be too long because we're ready.
Let me thank you, Bosso, for clarifying a lot of things, and thanks for the listeners for listening, and thanks for all the questions that were asked. A great program indeed, and we're looking forward to do it again. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to help educate the public about this whole COVID thing. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yes. Michael?
Well, yes, let me just say it was a very interesting program. The last caller, I would hope that he could engage me so I can give him some information from senior counsel, okay, who was doing the research. on the UWP. All right, and what he told Pierre Charles in my presence. Okay, but anyway, I want to say good evening to our listeners and good evening to our supporters. I am looking forward to a very interesting program in the future. Anyway,
All right, and let me just echo that again. I said we appreciate our listeners. Without you, the show doesn't work. Our regular callers, those who said, they are listening to the Freedom Party, and those who say they're willing to give the Freedom Party a second look, and they're listening to our voices, they see the positions that we're taking, because we authentically and genuinely believe in saying the right things, in doing the right things, in taking the right position, and not based on political considerations. Our first impulse is not to seek the political advantage. Our first impulse is to say the facts and to support the facts and to support the right things to be done to make our countries advance. And whoever says the right things, we're going to say, yes, that was the right thing. And so that is the position that we have taken as a party. That is the position that we will maintain as a party. It's the core of who we are as a party: integrity, policy, intelligence, knowledge, to base our development of our country on those attributes is what the Freedom Party. This is the core of what we are as a party, and that is what we offer our services and our energies and our minds and our talents to serve our Dominican people, to take that approach to governance and to policy development, and so we can move forward as a country the way we know we always can be. But we have been stuck now for a long time, and we want to change that.
Well, I can say though, in closing, I think we had a very good program. I thank the callers who called, the listeners, and in fact, we had a number of persons online, quite a number of persons online, and Navy Jude, I mean, made the point, I want my party back, in that Freedom Party back. So we thank him for that comment, and all of those who sent good comments, even on the WhatsApp messages I got on my phone. Just want to say, Alvin Thomas, hi to you, Clyde Gregoire, Frederick Barron in the US, Herbert Sabruch, and at Center Leg, out there listening, and all of these persons have said they're on every time we're here, they're here and listening to us. Cyrus Raphael and all of these persons, Michael Murphy and his dear wife, and quite a lot of names to call, and it is too late now to do all that. But we thank you all for being on. And I just want to end by saying there are those persons those of us in the Freedom Party, who were in the coalition, and the coalition was with Ruzi. We never saw Ruzi was dying, he passed and paid. Then those of us who saw that this government was not serving the genuine interest of the people, we get out of that. We could have been there earning like everybody else, selling passport, and living cheap and sweet. But we decided not to do that. Those who felt their interest was more on their profit side, they stayed there. That's their issue. And they have to be called Freedomites who to liberate. They can't be called Freedomites and use them to represent the Freedom Party, because they are not.
Right.
They're not. And when you use them to represent the Freedom Party, obviously those of us, whether it's one or two of us that is there, will come and defend what we are there for.
Right.
And one can disagree with us on this point. So thank you very much, and thank you for your information, your calls, your questions, and your comments. God bless you, and focus on how we work together against the COVID. We're again encouraging you to make yourself available for the vaccine, and we're also calling on the government to be more accommodating and stop this, political tribalism in the time of COVID, and that bring everybody on board, members of parliament, members in the civil society, for the good of the society and its people. And remember again, we are in the independence season, and we will not be back until God's willing, November.
First Wednesday in
So
November.
we wish you in advance all the best for independence.
Yes, and we shall see you very soon.
Very soon.
We look forward to that.
So while we do not have big gathering of independence celebration, but you can do your own family things and make yourself happy. Don't let yourself down. Don't let yourself sad. Thank you very much. Good night. Have a good night rest, and enjoy the rest of the week. God bless you.